I used to think betrayal sounded like a slammed door. It actually sounds like a cheerful ping. My daughter's tablet lit up with a chat called Family First, and in 3 messages I met the real family I'd married into, where my name was a punchline and my wallet had a nickname. I should never have touched Lily's tablet. That thought still haunts me, though it doesn't stop the memory from replaying in brutal clarity. It was a Tuesday evening, nothing special. Serena had gone upstairs for a shower, Lily was finishing her homework at the dining table, and I noticed her tablet buzzing every few seconds with notifications. At first, I thought it was just a game or some app, but then the vibration wouldn't stop. My fatherly instinct kicked in. Better make sure she wasn't being harassed online. What I found wasn't aimed at my daughter. It was aimed at me. The app was some private group chat, neatly labeled Family First. Inside were 3 members, Serena, her sister Harper, and their mother Evelyn. My chest tightened at the first glance. I expected reminders about birthdays, gossip about relatives, maybe photos of Lily. Instead, what I saw hollowed me out. He actually thinks he's providing for us, bless his pathetic little heart. Harper. Don't feel bad, sis. The more hours he works, the easier it is for Marcus to come around, winky face. Serena. Both of you need to stay focused. Men like Daniel are useful only as long as their wallets stay open. Don't get sentimental. Evelyn. I froze. My finger hovered over the screen, my breath caught in my throat. For a moment I thought it had to be some cruel joke, or maybe I'd stumbled into old messages. But the timestamps didn't lie. These weren't relics. The most recent was from that very morning, just after I'd left for work. My wife, my sister-in-law, my mother-in-law, mocking me as though I were a clown dancing for their entertainment. Scrolling became compulsion. Years of messages unfolded. Jokes about how long I stayed at the office. Laughing about my attempt to surprise Serena with flowers. Ridiculing the weekends I'd given up to put in overtime so the mortgage wouldn't crush us. They had been laughing at me while I thought I was saving us. Every sacrifice I'd made, vacations skipped, dreams delayed, had turned into ammunition for their cruelty. The words cut deeper than any blade could. Pathetic. Easy to control. That was who I was in their eyes. Not a husband, not a father, not even a man, just a walking bank account with a foolish grin. And beneath the ridicule, threaded like a shadow I didn't yet understand, was Marcus's name. My best friend's name, dropped into their little circle like it belonged there more than I did. My palms grew slick. I felt the urge to smash the tablet, to confront Serena right then and there, dripping wet from the shower, and force her to explain every line of venom. But another part of me, the colder, more dangerous part, wanted silence. Silence to observe, to learn, to make sure I wasn't losing my mind. And yet, beneath the shock, something darker stirred. Betrayal burns, but it also exposes truths we spend years ignoring. Serena and I had once been fire, hungry touches in the dark, wild nights tangled in sheets, the kind of sex that blurred the lines between love and obsession. I had thought the heat dimmed only because of time, responsibility, the strain of bills and schedules. But seeing those messages, I realized the distance wasn't life. It was her contempt. She had been drifting from me while still climbing into my bed, kissing me with lips that mocked me when I couldn't hear. And God help me, my body betrayed me too. That mix of rage and memory made me ache for her touch even as I hated her. The thought of her with Marcus, it wasn't yet confirmed, but the innuendo dripped from the chat like poison, made me burn with jealousy, yes, but also with a shameful, furious arousal. My wife, letting another man between her thighs, while I slaved away. The humiliation cut so deep it lit up a twisted hunger, to reclaim her, to dominate her, to prove that I wasn't weak. I snapped the tablet shut, pulse hammering. Lily looked up at me, her big eyes blinking innocently. She had no idea that her father's world had just splintered. I forced a smile, told her to finish her math worksheet, and went to the kitchen where I gripped the counter until my knuckles whitened. Voices from upstairs floated down, the hiss of water, Serena humming one of her favorite songs. So casual, so normal, while her secret chat carved me open. I imagined her naked under the spray, her hair slick, her hands gliding over her body. My gut twisted. That body had been mine. And now, if the messages meant what I thought they did, she had shared it with someone else. Someone I trusted. I should have confronted her. Any normal man would have stormed upstairs, ripped the curtain back, and demanded the truth. But I wasn't any normal man anymore. Not after reading what I'd read. The man they thought they knew, the docile, obedient provider, had died the second I opened that chat. What rose in his place was something else. Patient. Cold. Calculating. I knew I would confront Serena eventually. But not tonight. Not while my hands still trembled. Not while my voice would crack under the weight of fury. Tonight, I would let her kiss me goodnight. I would let her curl up beside me like nothing was wrong. And I would stare at the ceiling, memorizing every detail of the betrayal etched into those messages. Because the moment she slipped, the moment she revealed even a fraction of the truth, I would be ready. The chat had broken me. But in that breaking, it had also begun to forge me into something new. And when I was finished, none of them, Serena, Harper, Evelyn, not even Marcus, would ever laugh at me again. Lily plants the seed without knowing it. We're driving home when she chirps about the tall man with a shiny ring like Daddy's, who fixed the squeaky door and drank strawberry soda. A ring like mine. So, squeaky door. I swallow metal and keep my voice even. Who let him in? She says, Mommy, and asks for pizza. There are innocent explanations, but the ring hooks under my ribs. Marcus wears one like mine, same dull platinum, same old promise. I do not interrogate my daughter. I kiss her hair in the garage and carry the groceries inside. Serena meets us with a towel around her neck and the rosy skin of a woman fresh from a shower. Desire and doubt knot together like barbed wire. Doors fixed, I say. Who came by? She barely blinks. Handyman. Big guy. Quiet. Good with tools. The last phrase lands with lazy innuendo. She tastes of mint when she kisses me. My body betrays me by answering. I kiss her back because patience is the only blade I trust. That night, while she reads in bed, I pull the fireproof box from the closet and take out the tiny camera I once bought to test the nanny. Still new. Silent as prayer. I mount it inside the vent facing the living room and front door. A second, tucked between cookbooks, peers through a fake leather spine. If I'm wrong, I've wasted an hour. If I'm right, I'll never forgive myself for not doing this sooner. She slides close to me as we fall asleep, her hip pressed to mine, a soft invitation. I could turn and lose myself in her and pretend I still believe. Instead I breathe slow and let the heat bank into resolve. The man who rushed to please is gone. The man who watches has taken his place. The app pings the next afternoon while I'm in a budget meeting. Motion detected. I ignore the first alert. Then a second, a third. I step into the stairwell and open the feed. The living room is wide and ordinary. Keys turn. Serena walks in wearing a sundress that schemes her thighs. She puts 2 glasses on the table, sets down strawberry soda, smooths her hair, checks her phone. The door opens again. Marcus enters without knocking. My breath stops. He is exactly himself, a little taller than me, dark hair pushed back, that ring flashing when he rakes his fingers through it. He carries a paper sack with sandwiches. She laughs before he speaks. In one smooth motion she steps into him like magnets reunited. He kisses her as if he belongs there. She kisses back like she does not care who sees. The camera is well placed but not graphic. Angles, motion, the choreography of theft. She straddles him on the couch where Lily eats pancakes. His hands move under her dress. The first time, rage climbs my spine like fire. The second time, I feel only clarity. This isn't a mistake. It's a routine. They drift down the hall, the bedroom door left ajar. I don't need closer angles. The rhythm is unmistakable, the soft, greedy sounds that used to be mine threading through the house I pay for. I stand in a concrete stairwell watching my wife have sex with my best friend, and my hands are steady. A part of me, some stupid animal, stirs at the sight, shame sears it flat. Precision remains. After, they return to the kitchen glowing, conspirators after a clean heist. She licks mustard from his wrist and swats his shoulder when he teases her. He uses a key I never gave him to lock up. I save the recording to 3 different places and name it with the date, time, and a number that implies there will be more. Back in the conference room, I point out a rounding error and authorize a vendor change. Something inside me has cooled to a diamond edge. Heat smashes. Cold cuts. Serena greets me that evening with a lazy, contented smile and my soap on her skin. She loops her arms around my neck and murmurs how she missed me. I let my hands map her waist. I thought about you all day, I say. The truth inside that lie tastes like metal. Dinner is normal. Lily explains her popsicle stick bridge project. Serena squeezes my hand like we are still a team. After bedtime, she gives me the look that used to come with whispered urgency. She's still warm from the afternoon. I take her upstairs because I want one last measurement of the distance between what she says and what she does. In the mirror she is beautiful and treacherous. I slide her dress down, watch it pool. When I kiss her, she opens easily, greedily, like a lock moved by a key it recognizes. I keep my pace deliberate. She moans my name, and my body obeys out of habit, but my mind is counting tells. The extra softness at her smile's edge, the flinch when I grip too hard, the practiced ease of a woman already satisfied today. I finish because finishing keeps suspicions asleep. When she sighs and nestles in, it lands like a note slipped under a door after the house is already burned. I lie awake and replay the footage frame by frame. The ring flashing. The key turning. Her laugh at the threshold. I think of every shift I picked up to keep this roof safe, every weekend traded for overtime while my friend learned the exact shape of my wife's mouth. Morning brings lunches to pack and cameras to check. I don't delete anything. I don't confront her. The man they mocked hated conflict because he wanted peace. The man I am becoming wants the truth to ripen until its scent fills every room they think they own. When Serena hums in the kitchen, barefoot, I picture the porch where I will make Marcus bleed for walking through my door. Not yet. First I will turn their certainty into a trap. I kiss Lily goodbye and tell her to build the strongest bridge in class. She salutes with her juice box. I step into the sun feeling lighter than I should. The weight hasn't vanished. It has condensed, dense as a star, and it orbits every choice I make. Let them laugh a few more days. Let them think I'm still the man on the hook in their secret chat. By the time they realize I'm not, the hook will be in them, barbed, and I'll be the one pulling the line. The first rule of war is proof. I knew it instinctively. Screaming in the kitchen, fists on the table, demands for answers. None of that would matter if I couldn't make their lies stand trial. Serena would cry, Harper would defend, Evelyn would sneer, and Marcus would shrug with that grin he'd perfected since we were boys. Without evidence, I would look like the bitter husband, jealous and insecure. With evidence, I could burn their little empire to the ground. So I began collecting. The cameras were already feeding me more than I could stomach. Every tryst, every sly kiss in the doorway, every quick screw in the afternoon when Lily was at school. I cataloged them all. I named each file with sterile codes, as though stripping the humanity from it would make it easier to watch. It didn't. Every clip scraped another layer from me. Yet I didn't look away. Pain sharpened patience. Screenshots were next. I borrowed Lily's tablet again and sent the group chat to my email. The scroll of messages seemed endless. Serena bragging about how easily she could distract me. Harper laughing at my attempts to be romantic. Evelyn counseling them like some matriarch of deception, bleed him dry, but keep him docile. That's the trick. My mother-in-law had turned my life into a training exercise for cruelty. Late at night, after Serena drifted to sleep against my chest, I'd sneak downstairs and pore through the logs. Bank transfers I hadn't noticed before. Little withdrawals that looked small, but over years had bled thousands. Harper and Serena transferring money between accounts under Evelyn's guidance. My overtime wasn't wasted, it had been stolen. I couldn't rely on instinct alone. So I booked an appointment with a lawyer, an old contact through a client who specialized in family law. His office smelled of leather and steel, cold and clean. I laid out a sample of what I had. He flipped through it in silence, his eyes narrowing at each page. When he finally looked up, he said words that pressed both relief and dread into me. Mr. Cross, you have grounds for divorce, custody, and fraud charges. If what you're showing me is only a fraction, you could bury them. Good, I said, and the word came out like stone. He warned me, but you'll need to be careful. The more complete your records, the stronger your leverage. Don't confront her yet. Don't tip your hand. You want the court, and her family, to see the truth all at once. Timing will be everything. Timing. That word stuck in my head like a mantra. Every night I lay next to her, every time I smiled at Lily, every morning I kissed Serena's cheek before work. It was timing. A mask. A role. The man they thought they owned was still alive for now, but he was just an actor waiting for his final bow. Yet even as I played the part, temptation and rage knotted inside me. I would catch Serena stepping from the shower, her body slick and glowing. She'd walk past me in nothing but a towel, hair dripping onto her shoulders. Desire and hatred clashed so violently I felt dizzy. My body remembered the way hers once wrapped around me, the sounds she made in the dark. But my mind replayed Marcus's hands on her, Marcus's ring flashing in the kitchen light. When she leaned in for a kiss, I took it, not because I wanted to but because every moment of closeness now became evidence too. If she ever claimed we were estranged, I would prove otherwise. The more I thought about Marcus, the more my fury hardened into ice. My childhood friend. The boy who spent summers at my house, who stood beside me as best man at my wedding, who swore he'd always have my back. And now I had him on camera thrusting into my wife on the couch where Lily watched cartoons. Betrayal doesn't just break trust, it rewires it. I began to see the past differently. Every favor, every joke, every late-night drink with Marcus, it all bent under the weight of his treachery. Still, I didn't lash out. I documented. I built folders, backups, off-site storage. I learned how to mask hidden accounts and print records without leaving traces. I wasn't the fool they mocked anymore. I was their executioner assembling the gallows. The dinner at Evelyn's house was the key. Every month, she hosted a grand meal, her version of a royal court. Serena would shine, Harper would beam, Evelyn would preside, and I was expected to sit quietly at the edge like a loyal knight. That was where I would strike. My lawyer agreed. Drop everything at once, in front of witnesses, in front of family. No escape, no excuses. I imagined it often, Serena's face cracking when she saw the photographs, Harper stammering, Evelyn's icy smile shattering. The thought gave me fuel when the nights felt unbearable. But patience came at a cost. Each day with Serena grew harder. She still touched me, still slid into bed with me, still whispered my name in the dark. And sometimes, God help me, I responded with genuine hunger, desperate to reclaim what she had given away. Our sex became sharper, rougher. She teased me for my intensity, not knowing it came from rage as much as desire. When she moaned beneath me, I imagined Marcus hearing it, Marcus believing he owned it, and it made me drive harder, leaving bruises on her skin like signatures of ownership. She never asked why. She liked it. She thought I was hers still. They all did. That was their mistake. In the quiet hours, when the house slept and my folders grew heavier, I whispered promises to myself, that Lily would never be raised in this web of lies, that Serena's laughter at my expense would turn into silence, that Evelyn would watch her kingdom collapse brick by brick. The evidence wasn't just paper. It was power. And I was learning how to wield it. Evelyn's house always felt like stepping into someone else's memory, the kind that had been lacquered and polished until it gleamed with other people's praises. Persian rugs swallowed my footsteps. Portraits watched from gilt frames, each face a loyal subject to her reign. The dining room was a cathedral of her taste, heavy curtains, candelabras, a long table that seemed to measure power in inches. She sat at the head, as always, small and prim in a gown that suggested money didn't need to shout. This was her stage, and tonight she wore the crown. They moved through the ritual with choreographed ease. Harper arranged silverware like a general marshalling troops. Serena laughed at a story Evelyn told about some long-ago charity gala, the kind of laugh practiced to land in the right places. Richard, Harper's husband, clapped my shoulder with brotherly warmth. I now felt like a foreign thing. Lily had been entrusted to Richard's care for the evening, Evelyn loved to parade the grandchild when the scene required it, and the child beamed beside her grandmother, blissfully unaware of how the adults fashioned each smile for appearance's sake. I sat where I was expected to sit, opposite Evelyn's right hand, a place of honor that had once felt comfortable. I had rehearsed my face for weeks, serene, amused, loyal. I let the oil-slick politeness slide over the rawness beneath. It's surprising how simple it is to mimic a man who belongs in a story you wrote yourself. Tonight, I played the role perfectly. Evelyn's voice ran the table like a conductor. "Daniel, darling, tell us about the new project. You're doing so well at work, so very responsible." Her tone was honeyed, the words were meant to remind everyone who paid which bills. Serena's smile sharpened, not with affection but approval, as though I were a resource being acknowledged at a company meeting. I let them stroke my ego. Each compliment landed like a coin I'd been conditioned to hand over. I accepted it, because acceptance bred confidence in them, and confidence bred carelessness. I watched their faces as they ate, notes on a score I was learning. Evelyn's mouth twitched when she thought she'd scored. Harper's eyes darted to Serena whenever mention of money surfaced. Richard chatted about a new landscaping contractor, oblivious that his own accounts might be a minefield. Dinner was lush and ornate. Courses arrived as if summoned by some invisible hand. Conversation moved from banal to intimate with practiced ease. They traded stories of the charity gala, the neighbor's divorce, small mortifications with the relish of predators tasting the worry they'd engineered. The world they cultivated was small and cruel and precise. At some point, someone unveiled a tray of tiny pastries, and the laughter rose in a high, brittle chorus. Evelyn told a story I'd heard before, how she'd managed a huge donation by persuading a donor to sign over funds to a cause that never quite materialized. Everyone praised her cunning. I felt bile rise, for I knew how she trained them. Greed was a lesson, not a flaw. When dessert plates were cleared, I saw the moment coming like a shadow folding across the floor. I let conversation wander, guiding it gently as a maitre d' might steer diners toward the house's specialties. I asked about Lily's piano lessons. The education of the grandchild was a subject that pulled on their vanity. Serena warmed instantly, bragging about Lily's talent while keeping an eye on me, checking whether my demeanor betrayed anything. Evelyn leaned in, while the candles hissed. "We're so proud of you, Dan. It's important to provide. Men must provide." She smiled a smile that suggested she was dispensing benevolence. The room hummed with agreement. They all assumed I still accepted that role. How perfect! My lawyer had advised patience. My files sat heavy in my jacket like a second heartbeat. The envelopes were tucked into my coat pocket, plain, unmarked, small as threats. Inside, bank statements with transfers that crawled like ants to accounts I didn't recognize, screenshots from the family chat, printouts of the camera footage with timestamps and contextual notes, photos of signatures that didn't match my own. The courier, an actor hired through a service my lawyer recommended, would deliver them when I gave the nod. I let my wine go untouched for the moment. My throat was dry. Conversation turned toward travel plans, Harper's new boutique in Soho, Serena's sister visiting from out of town, and I listened while the pressure built like a storm. Richard told a story about a dog collar clasp that broke on his golden retriever. Everyone laughed. It was grotesque how ordinary laughter could fill a room where theft and betrayal had been planned like a dinner menu. I could see Serena's face in small increments. Her laugh was slightly louder than it needed to be, her fingers worrying a napkin. She hadn't seen the packets. Evelyn sipped tea with her practiced calm. Harper's hands moved faster, the way a pianist might, whenever money was the subject. I catalogued their tells like a detective, letting each gesture become an arrow to the bow I held. The courier arrived as if summoned by a dark god. I excused myself for a moment and returned without anyone noticing the exchange. A simple slip of movement, a backhanded delivery to the hostess. The envelopes waited on the silver tray, innocuous as butterflies. I placed them at even intervals, one in front of each of the guilty parties, and sat back down. For a long beat, nothing happened. The room breathed. Then Harper, ever curious, reached for hers. She opened it and frowned. The wrinkle on her forehead was the first sound of the collapse. Serena glanced at the nearest envelope with curiosity. Evelyn, with that same small smile, pried hers open with a perfect, delicate motion and read. My pulse kept a steady rhythm. I studied the way realizations spread across faces, slow at first, like frost taking a pain, then rapid as glass shattering. Harper's smile froze and fled. Serena's color drained in a manner that made the candles look obscene. Evelyn's face shifted over a tiny spectrum: confusion, annoyance, rage, the last masked with an attempt at composure. Richard, halfway through a joke, went still and then asked the question many of us had been pretending not to ask: "What is this?" His tone was baffled, wounded, angry. He scanned the papers, then looked at his wife with something like disbelief. The air sharpened, forks clinked like small weapons. Before anyone could form the defenses they'd rehearsed 1,000 times, Evelyn's hands trembled and then steadied in a way I recognized, like a queen adjusting her crown. "Explain," she commanded, her voice suddenly the iron it had always been beneath the velvet. I could have stood and spoken then, dragged the choreographed scene into the harsh light myself. But the law had a sweet tooth for spectacle, and my lawyer had wanted the court of witnesses to begin in situ. So I waited, letting the envelopes speak. Harper's voice cracked. Serena's eyes darted to me, seeking some anchor I had divested myself of long ago. Lily, in Richard's lap, looked between adults and felt the temper of the room without comprehension. The table that had once measured power now measured shame. This was the night the pedestals began to crack. It would not be the last time they fell. The candles had burned lower, dripping wax like nervous sweat. Evelyn still presided at the head of her table, but her composure had cracked. The envelopes had already started to leak poison into her little kingdom. Harper's fingers trembled as she shuffled through the papers, her lips moving silently over each word. Serena sat frozen, color rising and falling from her cheeks in waves, her jaw locked as if she were trying to contain a scream. Evelyn alone remained upright and imperious, though her hand on the stem of her wineglass shook once before steadying. Richard was the first to speak again. His voice carried a new sharpness. "What the hell am I looking at, Harper? These are transfers. Money." Harper's eyes darted to her sister, then to her mother. It's not what it looks like." I cleared my throat softly, drawing every pair of eyes to me. My mask slipped just enough to let the steel show. "It's exactly what it looks like." The silence that followed was thick, like velvet pressed to the mouth. My heart hammered, but my voice was calm. I reached into my jacket and pulled out the last folder, my own curated set, heavier than the others. "Since none of you are eager to explain, I'll make it simple. Every transfer, every forged signature, every mocking word from your family first chat, it's all here." I dropped the folder onto the table. The thud was louder than it should have been, echoing in that gilded room. Serena flinched as though struck. Richard snatched the folder before Harper could protest. He flipped through, his face darkening with each page. "You drained the accounts. For years." His voice cracked like a whip. "While I trusted you." Harper tried to reach for him, but he shoved her hand away, disgust written plain across his face. Evelyn finally spoke, her voice clipped and cool. "Daniel, you don't understand the intricacies of..." "Don't." My word cut sharper than hers. I leaned forward, my palms flat against the polished table. "Don't insult me with your clever little games. You groomed them into this. Every scheme, every cruelty, it all leads back to you." Her eyes, for the first time, betrayed something like fear. Serena slammed her hand against the table, her voice rising. "You went through my things? You spied on me?" Her attempt at outrage fell flat. She knew, even as the words left her mouth, how hollow they sounded. I turned to her slowly. "I didn't need to spy. You left the evidence everywhere. In your messages. On Lily's tablet. On camera." That last word landed like a blade. Serena froze, her mouth opening, then closing again. She knew what I meant. She knew exactly what I had seen. Harper crumpled forward, her face in her hands. Richard's fury radiated across the table. Evelyn still clung to dignity, but her fingers tapped a frantic rhythm against her wineglass. And Serena's eyes filled with a mixture of shame, rage, and something darker, the realization that the man she'd mocked as weak had been holding the knife all along. "Camera?" Richard repeated, his brow furrowed. I didn't answer directly. I let the weight of the word linger. I wanted them to imagine the footage, to fill in the blanks with their own worst fears. The room erupted. Harper sobbed, begging Richard to listen. He didn't. He slammed the papers back at her, his chair screeching as he shoved away from the table. Evelyn hissed orders like a general trying to salvage a lost battle. "Control yourselves. This is nothing but exaggeration. Daniel is twisting things." "Twisting?" I cut in. My voice had grown colder, harder. "Shall I twist the knife further? Shall I show Richard the transfers in Harper's name? Or Serena's messages about the tall man with the ring who visits when I'm not home? Or Evelyn's lectures about bleeding me dry?" Serena gasped, Harper sobbed louder, and Evelyn finally fell silent. I leaned back, calm now that the tide had turned. "No more masks. No more secrets. You thought I was blind, a fool you could milk until I broke. You forgot I could fight. And I won't just fight, you'll wish I had broken instead." Serena's chair scraped as she stood abruptly. "Daniel, please. We can fix this." "Sit down," Evelyn snapped at her, but the command had lost its power. Serena looked at me, tears trembling in her lashes. There was something almost genuine in her desperation, but I wasn't moved. I had spent too many nights staring at ceilings, hearing her moans with Marcus replay in my skull. Whatever pity she sought was buried with the man they mocked. Richard finally turned to me, his face pale with fury. "How long have you known?" "Long enough," I said. "And long enough to make sure every document, every message, every clip is secured. You're not just looking at evidence. You're looking at the end." The room dissolved into chaos. Harper pleading with Richard, Evelyn trying to command silence, Serena trembling as she reached toward me. For the first time in years, I didn't feel small in that house. I felt like the storm itself, and they were the ones trying to survive it. The Queen's table had been overturned, and I hadn't even played my final card. The doorbell rang. We all flinched toward the foyer. The bell chimed again, too familiar, too casual, and then the door opened without permission. Marcus walked in with the swagger of a man who believed he still belonged. He carried nothing but his grin and that ring, the twin to mine, catching candlelight as if it were proud of itself. "Hope I'm not late," he said, voice easy. He must have seen Serena's earlier text. Serena started to speak, some half-formed plea, some lie already fraying, but I stood so fast the chair toppled. The sound cracked. Richard pulled Lily close. Evelyn rose but didn't touch me. Marcus saw my face and lost some color, though pride kept him upright. "Dan, you don't get to say my name," I said. The room narrowed to the space between us. He glanced at Serena. She looked deflated. "You should leave," she whispered, too late to save anyone. I crossed the room. He lifted a hand, peaceable, that ring flashing. That flash did it. The glint of a man who'd slept in my sheets and opened my door with a stolen key. The rage that had cooled into a blade finally asked to be used. The first punch landed on his mouth. The second on his jaw. His head snapped left, right, a metronome set to violence. Someone shouted inside. Serena keened. Marcus shoved me against the entry table. The vase died on the floor. He was strong, but surprise and fury made me stronger. I drove him onto the porch into cold night air. We hit the railing. He swung wild and caught my cheek. Heat bloomed. I tasted copper. "You picked my house," I said, and slammed him into the siding hard enough to rattle the lights. His ring scraped my knuckles. I hit him again just to hear it sing. Years of friendship collapsed into the thud of bone. "Dan, stop." Richard somewhere behind us. Footsteps, people keeping their distance. Evelyn's orders fell short. Marcus tried to catch my wrists. "Listen," he coughed, blood threading his teeth. "It wasn't supposed to." "It was exactly what you made it," I said, and drove my knee up. He folded. When he dropped, I followed him down. I didn't see faces anymore. I saw the door opening on my camera feed, his easy kiss, the ring glinting while my daughter's drawings looked on. I hit him until my breath burned and the cold patience I'd cultivated broke into something brutal and simple. Hands grabbed my shoulders. Richard's first, then another pair. I shook them off and reached for Marcus again, but he was curled now, one eye swelling shut, breath ragged. It would have been simple to keep going until simplicity became a siren and a cell. Daniel. Richard's voice cut through the red. Not a plea or a command, recognition. I froze with my fist cocked. I could end the friendship in a single blow, but it had ended already, in a kitchen where strawberry soda sweated beside 2 glasses. Serena stepped onto the porch. Bare feet. A dress suddenly cheap. Please, she said. Marcus, get up. Whatever fantasy they'd built had cracked under the light. Light makes affairs ugly. Evelyn spoke from the doorway, brittle as glass. This is barbaric. She tried to gather dignity. You'll answer for this, Daniel. I already have the answers, I said, without looking at her. Tonight I gave them to everyone. Marcus managed to sit, one hand to his face, blood dripping. His eyes, one bright, one closing, found mine. I was going to tell you, he said, a lie that died halfway out of his mouth. You told me every time you used my key, I said. You told me in my own bed. Harper cried. Richard steadied me with a grip that said he might restrain me if he had to. Lily's small voice floated from the living room, frightened. The sound hooked me and pulled me back to shore. I stepped away from Marcus. The night smelled like wet leaves. My fists throbbed. A bright eel of pain slid up my forearm. The urge to strike again shivered through me and passed. Leave, I told him. Leave and never come back. He staggered to his feet with Richard's reluctant help. He looked at Serena for a lifeline. She didn't move toward him. She wrapped her arms around herself and stared at the porch light. He took the steps slowly, breathing hard. At the gate he turned, searching for a word. None came. He left with the ring still on his finger, a ballast for a ship already taking water. Inside, the house felt too bright. The table was a battlefield, papers everywhere, wine on linen, candles guttering. Richard ushered Lily toward the den, voice gentle, while Harper tried and failed to gather herself. Evelyn held her posture by will alone. Serena touched the porch rail where Marcus's blood had smudged and then looked at me. You filed, didn't you? There was no room left for lies. Yesterday, I said. She nodded like someone hearing a verdict they'd expected but hoped to delay. For a moment the memory of her body against mine, of the way she used to arch and gasp and pull my name from her throat, rose and buoyed me toward something softer. But the reality was louder. The chat, the transfers, the key, the laughter that painted me a fool. I let the softness sink. Evelyn found her voice again, sharp and mothering. This isn't over. It is for you, I said, gathering the remaining envelopes with movements so steady they shocked me. For all of you. I'll see you in court. On my way out I looked back. The queen at her broken table, the sisters with their mascara maps, the husband who had just realized his life had cracks he'd never seen, the child peeking from behind a doorway with a stuffed rabbit crushed to her chest. I wanted to promise Lily the storm was for her. Promises are heavy. I stepped into the dark and closed the door with the gentleness one uses for sleeping kids. The porch light haloed a smear of red on the rail. I didn't wipe it away. Let it dry there, a warning to thieves. Let it say, here, once, a man finally stopped being who they thought he was. The silence after Marcus staggered into the night felt heavier than any scream. The porch light caught the streak of blood on the railing, a scar against Evelyn's perfect house. No one moved at first. The only sound was Lily's muffled sob in the den where Richard had led her. The queen's table had been broken, and the kingdom looked suddenly small. Harper crumpled in her chair, her face blotched and raw. Richard, please listen. He didn't look at her. He stood near the doorway with his hands on his hips, staring at the papers scattered across the table as though they were bones from some crime scene. All these years, he muttered. All those nights you told me we couldn't afford things. And you were funneling it to them. His voice broke on the last word. Harper reached for him. He stepped back like her touch burned. Serena sat rigid, her body taut as wire. Her eyes darted to me, to Evelyn, to the blood at the door. "Daniel," she started. "Don't." My voice cut like glass. "Don't call my name as if it still belongs to you." Evelyn recovered enough composure to stand, her back straight, her expression frosted. "Daniel, I will not allow you to dismantle this family with theatrics. You may think you have evidence, but courts can be persuaded. Judges can be sympathetic. You are making a mistake." I turned to her slowly, feeling the strange calm that had become my armor. The mistake was underestimating me. Every message, every transfer, every stolen hour with Marcus, it's cataloged, time-stamped, stored in places you can't reach. Even if you burn this house down tonight, it won't erase what you've done. Her jaw tightened, but the tremor in her hand betrayed her. Serena finally broke. She pushed her chair back and stood, her eyes glistening. "Daniel, please. Lily, she needs her mother. You can't take her away from me. She needs a mother who doesn't treat her father like a fool. She needs a home without betrayal whispered in the corners." My voice shook once, only once, before I steadied it. "I filed already. Custody will be mine. You'll see her, with supervision." Her lips parted, then closed. Tears slid down her cheeks, real this time. I felt nothing. Harper sobbed harder, curling into herself as Richard gathered his coat. "I can't even look at you," he told her, his voice flat. "We're done." He didn't shout, didn't rage. He just said it like a man declaring the weather. And that hurt her more than any slap could have. Evelyn tried to seize control again, her voice sharp. "Enough. You men act as if you've never benefited from this family. Richard, your business contacts came from me. Daniel, you wouldn't have a wife without me." "True," I said. "And now I wish I hadn't." Her nostrils flared. "You'll regret this arrogance." "No," I said. "You'll regret thinking I'd never open my eyes." The room descended into chaos. Harper pleading with Richard, Serena choking on apologies, Evelyn snapping orders no one followed. I stood apart, watching it collapse, the fury inside me settling into a cold satisfaction. They had treated me as the weakest piece, the pawn. But pawns, when they reach the other side, become something else entirely. Richard returned from the den with Lily in his arms. Her face was blotchy from tears, her rabbit clutched tight. She looked at me, eyes wide and searching. I forced a smile, softening my voice. "It's okay, baby. Daddy's here." She clung to Richard's neck, but she nodded. That nod was enough to keep me steady. I gathered the last of the documents into my briefcase. Serena reached for me again, desperate. "We can fix this, Daniel. Please, don't destroy everything." "You destroyed it," I said. "I'm just sweeping the ruins into the light." Her hands dropped, and with them, whatever mask she had left. When I stepped toward the door, Evelyn tried one last time to command the room. "Daniel Cross, if you think you can walk away from this unscathed, you're a bigger fool than I thought." I looked back at her, the queen without her crown, the matriarch whose empire of whispers lay in shards. "I've already been the fool," I said. "Now it's your turn." Then I left, the sound of Serena's sobs trailing me into the night. The morning after Evelyn's dinner felt like waking after an earthquake, buildings still standing, but every doorway tilted. I brewed coffee, packed Lily's lunch, and kept my hands steady because my hands were the only part of me she could trust. She perched on a stool, brave the way children are when they don't yet know what to fear. I tied her shoes, kissed her forehead, and promised I'd be at pickup. At 9, my lawyer called. "It's begun," he said. Harper's counsel had reached out, Serena had hired a litigator, and Evelyn's name was already in the clerk's rumor mill. We moved like surgeons. Emergency petition for temporary custody, motion to preserve electronic evidence, request for forensic accounting, a protective order around my recordings. Each filing felt like scaffolding around a condemned building. By noon, my affidavits were signed. I included screenshots of the Family First chat, transfers that dripped from my accounts into theirs, and a sworn description of the footage. We held the videos back for timing. Stagger the blows, my attorney said. Courts remember the second cut more than the first. That evening, Claire, Marcus's wife, called with a voice like a wire. I found messages on his tablet, she said. He mentioned your house. I told her everything, plain and without mercy. She didn't cry. The silence on the line felt like weather deciding to change. She moved fast. By morning she'd filed for divorce and posted a statement, names withheld, facts unmistakable. She forwarded a thread Serena had sent months ago, complaints about me, instructions about my schedule, a photo of our doorway captioned 15 minutes. The pile of proof became a mountain. Serena texted in bursts, "We can talk. You're overreacting. Don't destroy Lily's life." Then the pivot. "I miss you. Remember the lake house? Memory is a liar with perfect lighting. I saw moonlight along her collarbone, the pier creak, the way she dragged me down before we had sex under stars. Memory stood next to facts, the ring flashing in my living room, my key turning in my lock. I let the messages sit unanswered. My attorney replied with dates and times. Richard looped me into a call with a forensic accountant. The numbers sang the same melody in both households, small transfers gathering into rivers, accounts disguised as vendors, slush funds tucked under Evelyn's charitable umbrellas. Theft posing as prudence. We froze what we could and flagged what we couldn't. When Harper tried to move a sudden chunk of cash, the bank pinned it like an insect. Richard's sigh over the speaker sounded like a man who had finally located the hole in his own boat. Court came quick. The judge was flinty and practical. Serena sat across the aisle with a posture that asked to be believed. Her lawyer hinted at my temper. Mine slid forward exhibits, chat logs mocking me, calendar overlaps with my overtime, the money's path from my paycheck to their pockets. The judge read, then looked at Serena the way surgeons look at tumors. Temporary sole custody to Mr. Cross, she said, with supervised visitation for mother. Preservation order granted. Forensic accounting to proceed. Serena waited in the corridor, eyes bright with panic. "Daniel," she said softly, my name a plea and a trap. "I never wanted to hurt you." The body keeps its own archive. Mine remembered the heat of her throat at midnight, the way she whispered "take me" and I forgot the world. Aches are honest. They just don't point north. "You did," I said. "And you kept doing it." She touched my sleeve. I stepped back. Something in her face folded. Marcus texted once. "Please." I stared until his name meant as little as spam. Claire didn't wait for my answer. She sent a packet to his employer, dates, copies, no adornment. Corporations despise mess. By Friday he was on leave pending investigation. Photos of him at Evelyn's galas began to circulate next to screenshots of Serena's giddy messages. Reputation doesn't explode. It peels, strip by strip, until the frame shows through. Evelyn responded like a queen in exile, letters through counsel, a sanctimonious post about protecting family privacy, whispers to donors about misunderstandings. Numbers are immune to tone. The accountant's report cut clean, cross-account flows, false invoices to shells, charitable misstatements that made auditors curious. Richard and I filed a joint complaint and blind copied 2 journalists who respect documents more than gossip. We didn't need headlines. We needed daylight. At night, when Lily slept in the next room, the old habit of reaching for Serena found only warm absence. Loneliness doesn't mean you want the liar back. It means your body hasn't updated its map. I poured the ache into small rituals that could bear weight. Meal prep, school forms, a calendar color-coded like a new language. We painted Lily's room the shade she chose, wild strawberry, an honest pink that made morning look less tired. When she laughed at the paint on my nose, the sound felt like new air. The phone kept vibrating, reporters fishing, friends choosing sides as if this were a game, relatives offering forgiveness like a coupon. I answered no one I didn't need. My circle narrowed to 4 points sturdy enough to build on: Lily, my counsel, Richard, and Claire. The rest could orbit or fall away. Before sleep, Serena sent one last message. "Do you ever think about us?" I closed my eyes and saw all of it. The first apartment with the crooked window, the lake house pier, the couch where I taught Lily to count, the door opening at noon to a man who wasn't me. Every day, I said to a room that didn't require answers, and set my phone face down toward the wall that faces my daughter's bed. The ruin kept widening, through ledgers, calendars, and group chats gone silent. It didn't make me happy. It made me steady. Steady is enough. From steady you build. In court, truth has a smell, paper and fear. I sit beside my lawyer with a binder that could rebuild a life, and across the aisle Serena folds her hands until the knuckles shine. She doesn't look at me. She studies the bench like the judge might forgive a shipwreck. The filings do the work. Exhibits slide forward, chat logs where I'm a punchline, transfers that wander like thieves, ledgers showing how Evelyn turned morality into math. When my counsel mentions the cameras, Serena flinches hard enough to stir the gallery. The judge lifts a hand. We will describe the contents. No screening today. Describe. A word more naked than film. On March 14th, my lawyer says, Ms. Lane admitted a guest into the marital residence during school hours. The two engaged in sex in the living room and bedroom. The minor child was not present. The phrase lands clinical and heavy. My eyes stay forward while memory spools. Her dress rucked at her hips, his ring sparking in my light, the hush after, as if the house tried to swallow the sound. Serena's attorney plays the softer music. Stress, miscommunication, regret that wants to be repair. He hints at my temper. My lawyer lays down the chat where Evelyn calls me weak and instructs her daughters to bleed him dry. The judge's face stays still, but the silence tilts. When Serena speaks, her voice is the one she used at 2 a.m, when she'd pull me close and swear we were forever. I made mistakes, she says. Tears glisten like a tactic she half believes. I love my daughter. I can be better. I believe the second sentence. The rest is a dress pulled over an empty room. The guardian ad litem is precise and unsentimental. Primary custody to Mr. Cross, she recommends. Supervised visitation for the mother until the financial investigation concludes and therapeutic milestones are met. Supervised. The word hurts and heals at once. The order lands like weather. Temporary sole custody. Supervised visitation. Preservation directives. A status date in 6 weeks. The gavel sounds smaller than it feels. In the hallway, Serena waits at a window where the light makes ghosts. Daniel, she says, just my name, soft as a bruise. Her perfume is the same one she wore at the lake house, when we tore up couch cushions and had sex so greedy we forgot a burning pizza. For a second, the ache of that memory presses on my ribs like old armor. I might have forgiven the messages, I tell her, if the rest hadn't been true. Maybe even the money. But you let him use my key. Her mouth trembles. I'm sorry, she says, real and not enough. She reaches, fingertips grazing my cuff, the touch that used to pull me from sleep and into her body. For Lily, show up on time, sober, honest. That's what matters now. She nods and folds in on herself. People pass and pretend not to see. I want to lift her from this like a fireman from a burning room. But she set this one. Mercy here would be arson. Outside, the steps are a noon theater. Reporters hover at the curb. Marcus waits near the statue with his face stitched by last night, lips split, cheek mottled, one eye swelling shut. He looks smaller in daylight. He starts toward me, stops. I deserve it, he says. All of it. I don't know why I did it, and also I know exactly why. Honesty almost earns him a fraction of pity I cannot spend. We were boys, I say. You could have told me you envied my house. You didn't have to enter it. He nods, eyes down. Claire filed, I add. He swallows. I know. I'm trying to be good to our son. The word breaks something in him my fists couldn't. I'm done speaking to you, I say, and walk away while he nods like a man inventing a prayer. The days that follow become an assembly line. Work, school pickup, dinner, the bedtime routine that feels like sacrament. Serena texts between supervised visits. Small things about Lily's new words, larger things about what we were. I answer the small, ignore the large. At the visitation center, She watches our daughter puzzle pieces into place. When we switch, her fingers brush mine on the clipboard. Heat schemes my skin, a ghost of the old circuitry, and fades. Marcus sends an email I never open. Evelyn's counsel threatens to countersue. Our accountants respond with numbers that do not blink. Richard and I eat takeout across a small table and watch the fear drain from our faces by degrees. He says, "I loved her." I say, "I loved her too." We clink chopsticks like men promising to stop apologizing for being deceived. On weekends, I take Lily to the park where oak limbs ladder the sky. She climbs, I spot. When she jumps, she flies for a second that scares me into grinning. In the car she asks if mommy is still in trouble. I tell her adults sometimes have to learn the same lesson twice. She thinks like a judge. "Okay," she says. "Can we get fries?" We can. At night, the house is quiet in a way it hasn't been in years. The body wants old habits. It reaches for a shape that isn't there. I let it ache. I let it pass. People talk about closure like a door. It feels more like a window you finally open and realize the air was stale. No mercy for betrayers. Not because I am cruel, but because I have a daughter and a spine and a memory that deserves not to be lied to again. Forgiveness may come in some distant weather. I'm not its weatherman. For now, I keep the order taped inside the pantry like a map. I cook pasta, fold laundry, read the same book twice because the first time my mind wandered to a porch where light still haloed a smear of dried blood. When sleep takes me, it comes without dreams. That is its own kind of mercy, the kind I allow. The key turned in a new lock, and the sound startled me with its sweetness. No borrowed door, no spare under a mat for a friend who wasn't one, just metal in my hand and a house that answered to us. Lily darted past me with the rabbit she refused to replace, sneakers squeaking on bare floors. Sun pooled on the east wall. The place smelled like dust and cut pine. The orders cooled from provisional to permanent. The divorce finalized on a Tuesday at 3:14 p.m. custody to me. Assets untangled with a clinical mercy I didn't expect. The forensic reports became charges. I didn't cheer. Paper victories don't sing, but their weight steadied my hands. We started small. Boxes labeled in Lily's handwriting, books, stuffies, magic. A mattress on the floor and a promise of a bed by Saturday. We made a list for the hardware store that looked like a blueprint for better weather: rollers, tape, drop cloths, an absurd number of trays because Lily liked the sound they made when stacked. At the store a woman in a navy shirt asked our shade. "Wild strawberry," Lily declared. The clerk's laugh was low, warm. Paint ringed her forearms like bracelets. Her tag said, "Annie." Our fingers brushed over a fan deck. No lightning, just a steady nudge toward a future not built from wreckage. We painted with the windows open and music low. Lily hummed. I cut edges and tried not to breathe too much history. The first pass of color leapt like a flag. By dusk the room looked like sunrise holding its ground. She slept under a borrowed blanket while the pink dried. I sat on the floor and counted the ticks from the vent. My attorney texted dates, filings, steady progress. A different kind of lullaby. Grief still ambushed me like a smell. A song, a shampoo label, the opener to a dumb show we watched after sex because laughter gives breath back. I let the ache pass. Wanting the woman she said she was doesn't mean wanting who she proved to be. Desire learns corridors. It still finds me. When Noah waved a week later, I let it look up and sit, patient. Marcus faded the way men do when no one will carry their story. His last message went unread. A mutual friend reported he'd left the firm. Claire kept the house and the dog. He visited his son on Sundays and looked bruised by fluorescent light. Forgiveness belongs to seasons. This one is for structure, not absolution. Structure meant calendars and rituals. Mornings became choreography, toast, shoes, a quick game where the hallway rug was lava and I was a bridge. Evenings meant the park, the library, or inventing recipes that offended pasta. I learned Lily's sleep sounds, how she whimpers when a dream fights back, how her breath evens when the world finally lets go. I learned my own too. Silence changed flavor. It no longer tasted like accusation. The house began to know us. I fixed the door that stuck. I replaced the porch light and didn't think of blood. A thrift store record player knit rooms together with a forgiving hiss. When Noah dropped off a forgotten brush, we talked on the porch about primers as if primers were the point. Her glance flicked to the pale band where my ring used to live, then to the pink down the hall. Bold, she said. Hers, I answered. Serena kept her supervised appointments. She arrived on time, perfume careful, hands quiet. With Lily she was attentive, and that mattered more than anything I could say about betrayal. We signed clipboards under laminated rules. Sometimes her mouth opened as if to reach for the old script about us, the nights we spent and the versions we killed. We let the silence keep the line taut and uncut. For Lily, not us. News of charges moved like slow weather. Evelyn railed in filings that sounded like sermons. Judges don't attend her church. Harper sent Richard an apology that read like a closing argument. He replied with the name of a counselor and the words "take care." I finally understood the difference between hatred and distance. Hatred keeps you tied. Distance is air. On our first quiet Saturday we planted basil, mint, a brave rosemary. Dirt under our nails, water darkening clay until it looked old. Lily made signs for each pot, hers still wrestling itself into shape. I grilled on the tiny balcony and listened to neighbors laugh 2 floors up. A woman's voice drifted down, unguarded, easy. I thought about sex the way you think about a house you might one day walk through. Not a fantasy, a possibility. That night I stood in Lily's doorway while the pink walls cooled around her. Betrayal reshaped me, yes, but not into a monster. It pared me down to bone and then asked what I wanted to build. I looked at my daughter's sleeping mouth, paint on my knuckles, a future that didn't need to be cleaned of anyone else's fingerprints. The key to our door sat heavy in my pocket. I turned it in my fist and heard again the sound it made the first time. Sweet, simple, ours. Tomorrow I'd email the coach about cleats. I'd text Noah a thank you for the brush. I'd water the basil and see if the rosemary had decided to be brave. The life I want isn't dramatic. It's specific. It fits in the hand like a key. I switched off the hall light and let the house exhale. Night settled around us, not an ending, but a room big enough to keep walking in. I closed my eyes and slept without watching any doors.